Good afternoon again, everybody. This is David Stearns from Haley Marketing Group, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley event. Today we're going to be talking about recruiting optimization and how to get more response from active job seekers. Now, I know we've been hearing from our clients all over the country that the candidate market is really tightening and that it's becoming harder and harder to find skilled labor and skilled professionals. So most people in the recruiting world talk about the benefit of going after passive candidates, and certainly there's tons of value in finding those currently working hard to find passive candidates. And for all of you executive recruiters on today's call, that's a lot of the value you add to the world. But today we're going to look at the opposite side. We're going to look at the active job seekers and how to get more response, how to make your staffing firm, your recruiting firm, your jobs stand out from the direct employer jobs and all the other staffing and recruiting firms. Just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover, today's agenda, we're going to talk about the 4 R's of recruiting. So we're going to start with the fundamentals, some stuff that probably everybody on today's call already knows. Then we're going to get into more details about how to get more response with less effort and potentially even less cost, how to boost referrals and improve reactivation of former candidates. And then we're going to wrap things up with some ideas on creating an awesome candidate experience, and because a big part of recruiting today is who has the best experience for the job seeker. So along the way, if you have questions, please don't be shy. Go ahead and use that question window. I'll do my best to address them as we go along. But as is usual for a Lunch with Haley event, we've got a lot of content to cover, and so over the next 58 minutes, we'll do our best to cover all that content as well. So to jump right in, we're going to talk about recruiting optimization and the 4 R's of recruiting, and it's something that I remember learning back in the 1980s, just really to provide a framework for thinking about all the different ways to find talent. And so those 4 R's are as follows: recruiting, referrals, reactivation, and retention. And when we're thinking about active job seekers, we really want to think about how to get good response in all 4 ways. Recruiting is what we are going to do to bring in new talent into our organization. Referrals are usually our most qualified candidates, so we want to make sure we're maximizing the referrals coming to our firm. Reactivation is getting people who used to work for us back to us, and even if you're an executive recruiter, it's really about having a lifelong relationship with the people you place. And of course, retention is keeping those really great temporary employees working for you. So the course of today's webinar, we're going to cover lots of ideas in each of these 4 areas. But when we get done with today's webinar, if you take the 4 hours back to your recruiting team and say, let's sit down and brainstorm each of these independently, I'm sure you'll come up with lots of new ways to improve the amount of candidates that are coming to your firm. All right, so the goal of recruiting is to get more response with less effort. It's not just about finding new ways to spend money. It's about getting more people applying to your firm, and more importantly, more qualified candidates coming to you. So how do we do that? Well, first and foremost, sexy sells. Now, this may sound really trite, but if you've got better jobs, you're going to get better candidates. And I know some of you on today's call may have clients that have jobs that are, shall we say, less than desirable. Maybe they're minimum wage jobs. Maybe they're jobs in less than ideal working conditions. But if you represent some of those kinds of jobs, you really do need to do whatever it takes to find better jobs that you can also represent. You don't want to be known as an organization that only has the worst jobs in your local community. So what kinds of things specifically could you do to get better jobs? Well, number one, you could look at some marquee employers in town, and you might be willing to take a lower markup, even in some cases little or no profit as long as you're covering costs, just to be able to offer jobs at their facility. You might create a loss leader kind of position where you have above average pay rates for a hard to find skill. And the idea being that if you've got some great paying jobs, you'll also attract more people to your firm. In retail, they use that concept of a loss leader all the time, where you have one product that you don't make a profit on to bring people into the store to buy other products. In this particular case, you might have one job that pays above market wages to attract more candidates to you so you have more people to place. And another kind of controversial point when it comes to sexy sells is using your client names in your job posts. Sometimes you can't do that. The clients won't allow you to. But most staffing and recruiting firms that I know don't want to do this because they're afraid, oh, the competition's going to know who our clients are. Well, guess what? The competition's already calling on your clients. In fact, they're calling on them daily, and multiple competitors are calling on your clients. You're not going to lose a client because you advertise with their name. However, if advertising with their name will improve response to your job posts, then use their name, of course, with the client's permission. Next thing is to think about really radically re-engineering your job posts. Forget those Me Too lists of here's the specific skills and experience we require, and here's the job title. In fact, I was reading an article on LinkedIn just this morning by Lou Adler talking about completely reinventing the entire recruiting process. And his point in this article was that if you're going to attract top performers, no top performer leaves their current job for a lateral move, unless they really hate where they're working. So if all you do is list skill requirements and experience requirements, you're mostly going to attract people who are looking to move up or people who are not doing that well in their career. You're not going to attract top performers. You really have to focus on the value you're offering to the candidate. Not just what you require to fill the job, but what are you bringing to them? You got to sell the position. You have to think like a marketer. You're selling your staffing firm. You're selling the benefits of working with your organization, and you're selling the benefits of working for your client. You want to find every way possible to make your company and your client more desirable in how you write job descriptions. This can include things like being the best place to work, offering better jobs as we just discussed, having retention or assignment completion bonuses, having other rewards that you provide to people who are top performers, showing off the kinds of training and advancement opportunities that the specific job offers, showing the career path that others have had, even in a job post, talking about what people can expect in this role, talking about temp to perm opportunities. Again, think about from the candidate's perspective, what are all the benefits that this particular job can provide? Focus on those first. And lastly, when you're writing about the job descriptions, don't think like an HR manager. Sorry to the HR managers who might be on the call today, but so many companies have job descriptions that are boring. Boring doesn't attract anyone. Boring just makes you look Me Too like everybody else, and why would an exciting candidate reply to a boring job? Think about differentiating your job simply with the language you use. Now, I don't want to tell you to go to this extent, but look at what real estate agents do and travel agents do when they sell homes and they sell destinations. They use very visual language to describe things. You want to do the same thing, using strong language that entices people to your specific job openings. How can you make every opportunity as sexy as possible for the job seeker? Next thing you need to do, not after thinking about how do I have more attractive jobs, is how do I get more value out of my website? Now, step one is to make sure you're getting the jobs on your site, and I mean really on your site. There are still lots of staffing companies and even more recruiters who don't post jobs and search assignments to their website. Now, most staffing companies will have the jobs listed, but a large number of them don't really have the jobs on their site. They're either sitting in a third-party portal somewhere, or they look like they're on the site, but they're actually buried in what's called an iframe, so the data is not really on your site. Now, why does this matter? Because if the job data is not physically residing on your website, all of that wonderful information that search engines love, because search engines love job data, that's not visible to Google and Yahoo and Bing. So your jobs won't show up when people are doing searches. Google's the first place people go to search for jobs, and if they can't find your jobs, you're at a disadvantage compared to the competition. Now, I'm going to talk more later about specifics about how to optimize individual jobs, but take a look at your website, and if the jobs are not at a domain of your site, and you shouldn't see a little box with a scroll bar on the side in the middle of your website, that means there's an iframe there. The job should really be on your URL. Now, here's an example. of a company that is using a product, and it's a very good product, I'm not going to knock it. It is the CareerBuilder Talent Network. It looks great on their website, it's very functional, and CareerBuilder has a lot of clout to drive traffic to jobs. However, the domain for this particular product is jobs.net. The issue with it being at jobs.net is all of the SEO value, all of the keywords in the jobs, all of the jobs you want your staffing company to be associated with, all that information is going to the URL jobs.net. So what kind of SEO value does that have for your firm? Well, the answer is absolutely no SEO value. Now, you may ask the question, well, what do I do if I've got an ATS or I've purchased a product where the jobs are not on my website? Well, there are two options that I can offer to you. Now, number one, and pardon the plug, but we built a job board. Haley Marketing's job board product does exactly what we're showing you to do here, put the jobs on your site. Number two is you can also blog about your jobs, and I'll show you some examples of both of these later on so you can see alternative ways to get jobs on your site even if your ATS doesn't provide it or you're using a third-party product like this talent portal where you can't have the job data on your site. The next thing is to make it easy to find and search jobs on your site. And what you're seeing on screen now are snippets from various company websites of how they've featured the ability to search jobs right from their homepage of their site. It can be as simple as a little box like the one in the upper right corner with a widget that allows you to do a search by keywords, location, industry. It can be something more advanced where you feature a list of hot jobs and you have the ability to do a search. There's a couple of different shapes to the search jobs widget that you see on this particular slide, and a couple of different ways to advertise the hot jobs as well. All of these are examples of companies that right from the homepage are featuring their openings and making it really easy to search for job information. But beyond the homepage, we also want to make sure that the ability to search jobs is right in your main navigation or one click away with the drop down for using drop down navigation, that you've got repeated calls to action throughout the site encouraging people to search jobs. It should be in the sidebar throughout the job seeker section. It should be on the About Us page. It should definitely be on your Contact Us page. And if you have a search widget like the example here in the upper right corner or the one in the lower right side, those are search widgets which allow a job seeker just to type in some information and jump right to a job search. Use those widgets throughout your site because what you're trying to do is get anybody visiting your site to take an action. The easier you make it to take an action, the more people who are going to do so. Feature those hot jobs everywhere. And here's another example of a company that right on their homepage they have tabs for job seekers and employers. And when you're on the job seekers tab, they've got a very quick one-sentence intro and then a button to search jobs, and below that is a widget to search jobs, and next to that is a list of some hot jobs. And you might think, geez, that's overkill. Look at all this stuff we're doing. But we're trying to provide clear calls to action, and really every call to action helping the job seeker get to what they really want, which is job information. Now, when they say feature jobs everywhere, you want to have them on your home page, your job seekers pages, every section of the job seekers area of your website, the About Us page, the Contact Us page, and thinking about if I have page footers or I have page sidebars, where are appropriate places to either include a list of hot jobs, a widget to search jobs, or just a button that says search our jobs. The example you see on screen now, when you go to this company's full website, here's Pelham Berkeley Search, and you get to the bottom of every page in their job seeker section, that area with search jobs and hot jobs is always there on the page just above a feed from their blog with news and insights. Why do they do that? Because they want the job seeker to always be brought to the job information. You can see by using the orange color, when your eye goes to this page, it's those jobs that jump out and get your attention. You also want to leverage your blog to promote jobs. Now, one way to do it is when people go to your blog page, that there's a call to action, and here on this particular screenshot you see a box that says take action, and there's one button for job seekers, search jobs, there's one button for employers that says request an employee, and then there's just a general contact us button. Why? We want people coming to the blog to be able to take action. Now, if you're blogging regularly, And you're all blogging regularly, right? Because when it comes to SEO, that's the most important thing you can be doing. When you're blogging regularly, a lot of traffic is going to come to your website, and the first page they're going to go to is a blog post. So when they go to that blog post page, what can they do? Can they just read the blog post? Well, that's not the only action you want them to take. And don't make them work hard by having to go to your main navigation and figure out what to do next. Put those calls to action right into the sidebar of the blog design itself. Another thing you can do is in your blog, you can blog about specific jobs. So it might be on your website in your job board, but you might want to write about the job in your blog as well. Now, why would you blog about a job that's already on your website? Well, the answer is because it's a different way that somebody might engage with the job. And you might write the post in a different format than you would include when it's on your job board. So maybe you would do it as a story about a candidate who's been successful in that kind of job before, or a story about the employer and what a great place it is to work. The idea is you're using your blog to promote specific job opportunities. You're linking back to your job board so people can apply, and you're writing content that's optimized for search engines to bring more job seekers to your website. Now here's an example of a company that just simply took a blog post and made it look just like a job post. And they did this because they have an ATS that didn't give them any easy way to put the job data directly on their own website. So they did a very simple thing. They took all the job data and then they put it in there as a blog post the exact same way it looked in their job board. But now all of this content, the job title, the location, that is all on their website, part of their domain, seen by the search engines to help optimize this particular company's website for occupational therapy, travel jobs in, oh, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that. I'll just say Indiana. One of the things I mentioned before we go on, I want to reiterate too, is it doesn't have to look like this to be an exact duplicate of a job post. You might write about a job and use a title that's similar to this, like I might write out instead of OT, occupational therapist, travel jobs. But then I would tell a story in a different way so that I'm really trying to talk to the candidate who's be interested in that job and talk about what a great opportunity this is and how other people have been successful. And I might include testimonials from other candidates so that I'm complementing the job post that's already on my website with the same information in a very different format. Also, if you're using, as you see at the bottom of the page, some of those social sharing buttons, those stories become very nice things to share on social media to, again, drive more traffic to you. Now, I promised to talk a little bit about how to optimize job posts and what your website should be doing. From an SEO perspective, there are a few key things. First and foremost is that the jobs are on your domain. So right here in the center of the page, you see jobs.smithhandley.com. So all the job data is on this company's domain, and then the title of the job itself and the location are part of a custom URL for this specific job. So we've got advertising, accounting supervisor jobs in Des Moines, Iowa. Why is that important? Because when Google is figuring what this particular URL is all about, it uses these words. So Google immediately knows that this specific page is about advertising and account supervisor jobs in Des Moines, Iowa. So if somebody is looking for an advertising job in Des Moines and they happen to do a Google search, it's very likely this page would be found. So after the URL, the next thing to optimize is the page title. It's another key piece of data that Google uses. So you want, again, your job title and your location to be part of the page title. Now, if you're using an ATS, you may have no control over what shows up in the URL or the page title. If you're using Haley Marketing's job board, and then what you see on screen now is an example from our job board, all of this is handled automatically. This may be another instance where if you have no control over this information to optimize the post in your ATS, you can optimize it by creating a blog post. A couple of other things to think about is as you write your posts, use good keywords in your headlines and throughout the description of your post, and throughout your website have internal links from one page to another around key jobs, key locations to try to show Google that the page you're going to is about a specific job or about a specific industry or about jobs in a specific area. And when you're writing blog posts, you write text like looking for jobs in Des Moines, and then you'd highlight that phrase, jobs in Des Moines, and link to your job board, because that text you've highlighted and linked is called anchor text, and if that anchor text has keywords, that helps you rank more highly. Now, somebody just asked a quick question. I'm using some jargon that they weren't familiar with, and they said simply, what is an ATS? An ATS is an applicant tracking system or your staffing software. It's the software you use to run your staffing or recruiting firm, and it's where you should be entering all of your job information. Now, in addition to optimizing posts for search engines, that's not the only type of optimization that you want to do. You also want to optimize your jobs for job aggregators, and I'm going to show you more about how to do that in just a little bit. Now, once the jobs are on your website and you've marketed them every way possible within your site, then you want to think about, how do I distribute them? And how do we improve distribution in two different ways? Well, number one, we want to send them to job aggregators. Indeed, Simply Hired, and Glassdoor are aggregators, and I guess I'm not sure how they're going to look at the staffing industry, but LinkedIn has started aggregating jobs as well. And then you also want to distribute them to social media. You can send your jobs to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, but you'll have different goals for each social platform, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. When it comes to the job aggregators, Simply Hired will take all of your jobs free of charge, as will Glassdoor, and we just started sending jobs for our clients also to another site called CareerJet. Indeed, if you've been posting to Indeed for a number of years, I think it was about 2010 they made a change, anybody who's been posting to Indeed since before that time, your jobs will go and be posted in the organic or natural listings in Indeed. However, if you're not already posting to Indeed, you may only be able to get your jobs to Indeed if you sponsor them. So Indeed is a great site. It will drive lots of traffic. You just have to test it to see, hey, will they take my jobs for free, or do I have to pay to sponsor? And then if you're going to get into the PPC world, which I'll explain later, then you start measuring, is it a cost-effective channel for distribution? The idea to the improving distribution to the aggregators is you really want your job board or your ATS to automatically send your jobs to all of them regularly so that you don't even have to think about it. With social media, it's a little bit different. You want to maximize your social reach and your social engagement of your job information without driving people crazy. So for example, you want to send every single job to Twitter, and you can automate that. But you don't want to send every job to Facebook or to LinkedIn, or you're going to annoy people that have liked your organization or that follow you on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, there is no automated way to share to your company page unless you're buying the LinkedIn Recruiter and Talent products. So we need to manually share on LinkedIn, which is very easy to do, and you can go to jobs and you can manually share your job to an individual page or group on LinkedIn. You also want to do very selective sharing on places like Facebook so that you're not driving people crazy. If the only thing you're sharing on Facebook is job post after job post, you're going to lose your followers. If you are selectively sharing great jobs, those sexy jobs, or I know we've got some clients that will do like a featured job of the week or a featured employer, and you turn that into Facebook content, that is much more effective than sending out every single job. One of the things you want to see from your job board is the ability to have social sharing features integrated right onto the page. And for those of you using the Haley Marketing Job Board, here's something your recruiters should be doing every single day. If I'm a recruiter, I would want to go into our company website, go to our job board, go to jobs that I posted, that I own, and then I would want to share them with Twitter and with my personal status updates on LinkedIn. I would share the new jobs that I posted every single day. And then from time to time, maybe every 2 or 3 days, I would reshare jobs that I still have open that I haven't filled. So ideally, if these tools are built right into your job board, it's very, very easy to do this, and a recruiter in just a few minutes' time could go share the jobs that they have open. And it's really nice in this particular case that not only do you share, but the little check mark gives you an indication of where you finished sharing. In this particular case, the jobs could be shared with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, via email, via Google+, or this this funny looking little icon is one called Share This, which allows you to do just about any social media. It's particularly nice if you want to share into LinkedIn groups. Now be careful if you're sharing into LinkedIn groups. Some groups don't like recruiters sharing jobs, so you really want to know the policies of the groups you're participating in. Others welcome jobs, and it's good to share. Now, one of the questions we often get is, how do I actually share the jobs from the job board to social sites? And the technique for doing that is with RSS feeds. RSS is an acronym that stands for Really Simple Syndication, and really what it means in plain English is it takes your job data, packages it all up, and makes it available to send from point A to point B. So what you do is you take the job data, there's a URL, a link for your RSS feed, and for our Haley Marketing clients with the job board, if you log into your job board on My Haley, right at the bottom of your overview page, right below the statistics, or right next to the statistics, you'll see all of the URLs. You'll see your RSS feed URL. If you're stuck, you can always call support here, and we will get you the URL you need to use with Twitter Feed. And Twitter Feed is the next step, because that's a third-party tool that you go to, you set up an account, and you can say, here's my RSS feeds, and here's where I want to send it. So with Twitter Feed, you can send all of your jobs to Twitter. One of the things that we recommend is you can also, on LinkedIn, send a feed to a recruiter's specific status updates. So if I'm a recruiter working for an organization, I might want a feed of just my jobs going to my account on LinkedIn, so I could get the RSS feed for just my jobs, and then use Twitter Feed to sending my personal updates as I'm adding new jobs. And a question about this, I had a question. Someone says, we're on Bullhorn, and can I post from within the side of the system, or do I need to use the Haley Marketing Job Board? I'm not positive about how Bullhorn will post out directly. You certainly could use the Haley Job Board. We have an integration with Bullhorn. You could also use Bullhorn Reach, our two different options for getting the jobs out from Bullhorn to social media. So I want to reiterate some of the guidelines for social sharing and how to really make the most of your posts on some of the social media. I mentioned on Facebook, be selective. Don't overdo every single job post. And one of our clients, Cornerstone Staffing, does a really terrific job. They will selectively share job openings that they have, not doing every one. And as you can see from the sample here, they'll add pictures to it because pictures draw your eye much better than just text. And then I highlighted with two arrows some very important things that they're doing. They're getting people inside their organization and then getting external people to share the job and to like the job. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Facebook, you may be familiar with something called EdgeRank. And for those who are not, EdgeRank is essentially the algorithm that Facebook uses to determine who sees content when you log into Facebook. You may have read there's been a pretty consistent decline in brand pages or company pages having their content seen by the people who have liked their company. The way you combat that decline in EdgeRank, the decline in how much your pages showed, is by having more shares and more likes. The more your content is shared, the more people that like it, the more others will see it. And so one of the things we recommend to our clients is, as you're sharing content from your job board to Facebook, then have your staff go and reshare that content and like that content, because the more you're sharing and liking your own content as an organization, or you're liking your organization's content, the more other people will see it. And that's kind of just, it's one of the little games that Facebook plays, is limiting distribution of your content to only those people who really like it. So the more people who are liking it, the more people who are going to see it. Now, somebody asked another question about Twitter and says, we have multiple Twitter accounts. There's a way to automate different Twitter accounts for different territories. Sure, you definitely could do that by setting up like a Twitter handle for Dallas accounting jobs, another one for Denver accounting jobs. You would just want to then grab an RSS feed of just the jobs that matched each Twitter account. So it could be by industry segment, it could be by geographic location. You just have to get the RSS feed that's relevant to the Twitter account. Or maybe you'd have a Twitter account for each recruiter, and the recruiter would get their own personal RSS feed. Now, another great place to share is Google+. Google+ doesn't have any automated way for us to share content, so we have to manually take the URL from a job post, share it on Google+. If you're doing technical jobs, if you're doing sales and marketing people, that's probably the strongest audiences for Google+. And then on your LinkedIn company page, again, you can manually share content from sharing individual posts to your company page. There's no automated way to do it. All right, the next thing to do in terms of improving recruiting is put yourself in the mindset of the job seeker. And the headline I wrote here, a job by any other name might attract more candidates. The mistake I see lots and lots of companies making, including many of our clients, is they use functional job descriptions. So if the job description is for a receptionist, then the job title says receptionist or administrative assistant. Well, what about director of first impressions? If you are more creative in how you write your job posts, you're going to stand out more, particularly when you share your jobs on social media or with job aggregators, and when you're doing paid posts on job boards. I'll give you an example. I went and did a quick search on Indeed for administrative assistants in Rochester, New York. Now, the first things that come up are paid or sponsored jobs. So the legal secretary, the part-time HR assistant, and the human resources assistant are actually sponsored jobs that those companies are paying to put in front of me, which is why the job title doesn't match administrative assistant. But what's then very interesting is the next and first natural listing is for a coordinator of front office operations. What a great name for an administrative assistant. Much more interesting than just the functional administrative assistant. And if I had a choice between clicking on that first job and the second one, which just says administrative assistant, the first organization, Rochester Institute of Technology, looks much more interesting. And I'm more likely to click on that. Now, the key to writing job titles isn't to be so out there nobody knows what the heck the job is. So if I said Microsoft Office Ninja, that might not really mean I need an administrative assistant. But you want to be creative while still being descriptive. You also, instead of just getting creative with titles, you may say, I'm going to be functional with my job title, but I'm going to include other information when I type in the job title. I might include a phrase like top local employer, or best place to work, or rapid advancement opportunities, or top compensation, flexible hours. Think of all the benefits that you might be selling in the detail of the post and pull those up into your job title. The reason for doing that is when I'm on a site like Indeed or I'm on CareerBuilder, the first thing I see are job titles. And the job titles that have something different about them are going to catch my eye if I'm a job seeker. The key is to differentiate, to write your job titles and your descriptions so they don't sound like everybody else. Now, one of our clients, Integrity Healthcare, has been doing this for a long time. They'll write about the same job. They recruit physicians, and they'll write about the same job in lots of different ways. So, a couple of examples right on screen here. The first two jobs are the same position. They're locum tenens opportunities, so temporary doctors. One, they wrote occupational medicine in South Carolina. The next, they wrote hospitalist in South Carolina. Why did they write the same job with two different titles? Because they don't know how a doctor is going to search. Maybe the doctor is going to Google occupational medicine, and they're sitting in a desk that's in South Carolina, and therefore Google's going to know that and show them an occupational medicine job. But maybe their job title is really a hospitalist, and that's what they're going to type in. So by thinking like a candidate and writing about the same job with different titles depending on how a candidate might search, you're more likely to be found in search engines. Now, I've seen Integrity do some incredible things where they'll put sign-on bonuses and referral bonuses into the job titles. So, again, they're selling benefits with the titles, not just the functional role of the position. I've had a couple of people, one who's given me a very good correction that a hospitalist and occupational medicine are very different. Thank you for that. I'm not a doctor, so I did not know that. However, they may be recruiting for two different jobs in this specific job board, But the issue is if you can think about a hospitalist, because it's a very generic job title, and all of the different specialties of all of the different ways a doctor might think about their position, obviously using it as occupational medicine would not be correct. But if you can think about the different ways they might search, you will be able to attract more job seekers. And I know for a fact that Integrity Healthcare measured their return on investment, and they said having this strategy of using the same titles in different ways and posting the job multiple times allowed their website and their job board on their website to be their highest return on investment recruiting tool by a margin of 2 to 1. And next question is how important it is to have your company reviewed by employees on Indeed, and how you go about getting employees to do this. That's a great question. I've never seen any actual statistical data on the importance of an Indeed review, but the more you have positive reviews on any site, the better. When we looked at that example of Indeed, you may have seen there were 79 reviews of RIT and none of Manning and Napier. So I see RIT got 4 out of 5 stars and 79 reviews. That's pretty good. And Adecco up here has 3,000 reviews and 4 stars. That's excellent. So positive reviews carry a lot of weight on many different sites. You would want to have the positive reviews. However, how do you get them? Well, if you have a candidate who you know is very happy, I would just talk with that person. Have the recruiters talk with that person. Ask them for the review the same way you'd ask them for a referral. All right, and moving on now, one of the second last things about thinking like a job speaker is to paint pictures with your words. I opened the conversation talking about Lou Adler saying if you just list skills and experience as your job requirements, then you're not going to attract top performers. And what I'm referring to with paint pictures here is think about how do I create a story, something so the candidate can start to visualize himself or herself in this role. This is one that was taken off of our website, and we were trying to find front-end web developers, and we want people who are excited about pushing their skills. So we opened with some headlines. Can you create websites that make people say, wow, you want to push your design and coding skills to even higher levels? Want to work for a company where your talents will be appreciated, your ideas will be heard, and you'll have a chance to do some amazing things. Our idea is not just to say we need a front-end web developer. It's to say this is a great opportunity for somebody who really wants to work for a great company. And then the next couple of paragraphs, which you made very easy to read by making them 1 to 2 sentences per paragraph, introduce the person to us to tell the story about what it would be like to work for our company and the kind of individual we really want, and then we get into the functional requirements. The idea is if you think about the fact that when somebody goes to Monster or Career Builder or Indeed and they see your job post, that's actually the first exposure they get to your firm. So your employment branding, how they see you, is driven by how you've written that job post. Give them a taste of your culture. Give them a reason to want to connect with you and not the other 200 companies who have nothing but functional job descriptions saying, here's our requirements. And lastly, in terms of thinking like a job seeker, be honest about pay. I know that there's a real reluctance to want to include pay rates or pay ranges in job posts. There are times when, yeah, you really don't want to do that because maybe you won't attract any candidates. But it's been documented that job posts with pay attract 40% more responses. And if you don't have a high-paying job, I would still want the pay to be in there, but then I would explain why somebody should take this lower-paying job. What's in it for them next? And if, again, maybe you've got a job where you could argue against me, and I won't argue with you if you're going to. There are times, I'm not saying 100% of the time I would include a pay rate, but by and large, you want to include pay rates in your jobs. Now, there are some concerns I know people have that if you include a range, hey, this job is $12 to $15 an hour, every single candidate thinks they're $15 an hour. There are risks, but if you do include the pay rate, you will get more response. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the paid channels that you're using to do your recruitment marketing. You really want to maximize response to those paid channels. So first up, the job boards. I pay to advertise on Monster and Career Builder. Well, those same rules that we just talked about in terms of writing your job post really come into play on the third-party sites. I know you can buy branded pages, and that can be a very good idea. It can be expensive, but a branded page to show off your company culture right on Monster Career Builder. You can test different job titles. Now, I wouldn't go crazy because you're paying for every post, but if I'm not sure how people are going to be searching for that job, I might want to put it into a couple of categories. But most importantly on job boards, I want to measure my response. I want to know my cost per application. I want to know my cost per placement from each job board so I can see what works for the kinds of people we want to recruit in our market. And there's not one size that fits all. Sometimes it's going to be CareerBuilder, sometimes it's going to be Monster, sometimes it's going to be Dice. It may vary if you're in Buffalo or you're in Los Angeles or you're in San Francisco. The other thing you're going to want to take a look at is pay-per-click advertising. Indeed and Simply Hired and other sites now offer pay-for-performance. I think Monster just came out with a pay-for-performance where you only pay when someone clicks on your job. And you set essentially a bounty, a dollar figure that you'll pay every time somebody clicks up to a limit of the budget for the job. So you can test PPC right in the job aggregators. You can also do PPC outside the job aggregators. Things like Google AdWords, Facebook sponsored updates, LinkedIn sponsored updates, and Google remarketing to keep your company name top of mind. And those are all other ways to do pay-per-click advertising to promote your jobs. Within Indeed and Simply Hired, you're advertising the job on their websites. With Google AdWords and Facebook stories, you're advertising to people either by their demographics or by things that they're searching when they go online. So if you have someone who is searching for a administrative assistant job in Rochester, New York, you can show an ad just to that individual, and if they click on your ad, then you pay the pay-per-click price, but they're coming right to your job. And the last thing I'm going to say about the pay channels is you want to really use some sort of a tool or process to measure your return on investment. A product that I ran into last spring and we were really impressed with is called Recruitix. So nice plug for them. But they have a platform for managing your PPC spend, and they can get into very deep analytics to tell you the ROI of every single recruiting tool you're using, what's working, what times of day it's working, what jobs it's working best for, where to spend your money and where not to spend your money. For our job board clients, good news, we're working on a partnership with them, and in the next few months you will see a free trial of Recruitix as part of your Haley Marketing job board. Now before we go on, there's been a couple of questions that come in. Can I access this presentation later? Yes. You'll get a follow-up reminder from GoToWebinar that'll have access to the recording and the slides. And then the next question is, would it be good to include the pay range when phone screening and setting interviews? Now, I'm not a recruiter for a living. I'm a marketer, but I'm going to give you my sense on this is, yeah, I think it's always good to be upfront about the product you're selling. If the product has a certain pay rate, it's good to be upfront about that. Now, the exception would be is if you know there are certain candidates who would be turned off by the pay rate, but for whom this would be a great opportunity, then I wouldn't use the pay rate. I would focus on the benefits that would sell that candidate and get those people to call me and then address the fact that, yeah, this isn't a great pay for now, but here's your opportunity. All right, and here's another example. We looked at Indeed before, and this one is a search result from CareerBuilder, and again, an administrative assistant job, and you see that same search for jobs in Rochester, New York. Now everything really looks exactly the same. So again, these companies could be doing things with their job titles to try to differentiate to get the job seeker to click on their company's positions. A couple of them did use pay ranges, but interestingly enough, other than the AP professionals, they all have the same pay range. All right, so that's all been about recruiting and how to get more response to your recruiting investment. Now let's talk about the next two R's, referrals and reactivation. So first thing is you want to build a talent community and nurture it. And by talent community, I mean a list of people who have opted in to communications from your firm because they want to hear from you. They may want to hear from you about job information. They may want to hear from you about career advice. The idea is you're getting people who are specifically holding up their hands saying, yes, please keep in touch with me. And ideally, they're going to give you their email address to do it. You want to ask every single candidate during the interview process for permission to email. And if you're in Canada with the new Castle law, not only do you want to ask them, you want to document it by writing it down that you have permission to email to them. When people go to your website and they look at jobs, you want to offer them the opportunity to get job alerts. They'll get automatic notifications when you post jobs that match their interests. You may want to email candidates that you've worked with in the past and invite them to join in. The idea to having a talent community is over time you're building a larger and larger database of people with whom you can have regular communication in order to not just market jobs to them, but to ask them for referrals and to get them to come back to your company when they're looking for employment. Next thing is you want to make sure that job alerts are a habit in your organization. So there should be automated alerts going out every day to candidates who have asked to receive those alerts about hot jobs that you're posting to your website. You want to have the ability to push out jobs in specific featured categories to people based on their interests, to ask the candidates, not necessarily are they interested in this job, but who do you know? Remind people of your referral bonus program. You also want to make sure that when you're doing candidate communication, it's not just about jobs. Candidates do want to hear from you about jobs, but they also want to be treated like real human beings. And if all you're treating them like is a source of inventory for the jobs you need to fill, they're not going to like that experience very much. So think about how can I nurture relationships with my candidate communications, as a friend and a career partner. So my hot jobs emails should be supplemented with information, not just career information, but information and personal stories and local community news and just fun stuff that candidates are going to value, so you are building deeper relationships with your talent community. For those people on the Haley Marketing Group job board, you probably know your job alerts are all automatically built into the job board, and if you're not sure how to use those automated and scheduled featured mailings, that's a tool you can find out in the Help Center. It's also built in, and from within My Haley, you can simply go to the mailing section and set up all of those automated emails to go out. Now, in terms of building your talent community, think about social media as well. It doesn't have to just be email. You can connect with your candidates on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I know this can be very controversial because usually the candidates are going to connect with individual recruiters, and what happens when that recruiter leaves the organization? Well, if you're making your organization the best place to work for your recruiters, hopefully that won't be a big problem for you. However, it still makes sense to build those talent networks. You can do it at the individual recruiter level, or you can do it from your company page on Facebook or LinkedIn. And depending on your relationship with your recruiters, you might do it in both. The idea to having a talent network through social media is it's very, very easy to communicate with people, because now I can just do updates from our Facebook page or our LinkedIn company page, and our network is being informed about new jobs and, again, other interesting information. Just like with email, you do not want to make your social communication all about jobs. You want to make it about building relationships with candidates, and then reminding them of your referral bonus program. Talk to them about times to reactivate, when it's time to look for a new job. Be seen as an educational resource and somebody that really cares about talent, not just somebody who's pushing jobs. Within LinkedIn, some of you may be familiar with the new showcase pages, and that's kind of a subset of your company profile that you can create to showcase, and it was designed for companies with multiple products, but it would work equally well for companies in multiple industries, that you could create a showcase group for each industry you serve, like IT and engineering and accounting and admin. Now, somebody just asked the question, if you're selling the job by explaining the perks, does this take away from SEO of actual required skills and job title? And that's a great question. You want to have keywords in the job title that people would be searching for. So in writing the job title, I want to think about words people would be searching for. So I might post it once functionally under administrative assistant, and the next time with a little more hype saying director of first impressions. Now, if I took administrative assistant and I just added top paying job, that does not take away from SEO at all. Having it posted two different ways might address the fact that I don't know how people are searching. And then we had a question come in via Twitter. What's the best way to build a talent community? And I think the best way to build a talent community is, number one, ask your candidates. Always be asking your candidates during every interview, during your online communications, on your social media. And then encourage your candidates to tell their friends. How? Well, you give them content that they want to share. You put stuff on Facebook that fun pictures and you put good stories that they'll share to build the network of people who have liked you or that follow you. From an email perspective, you're going to want to encourage every visitor to your website to opt in to receive ongoing job alerts or other email communications. And that's by marketing your jobs and marketing that opt-in effectively throughout your site. So essentially, the best way to build a talent community is thinking about every touch point you have with current candidates and prospective candidates, and then also encouraging your candidates to participate to help build the network of referrals, which ultimately builds your talent community. One neat thing you can do in LinkedIn that I only recently discovered about a year ago is that you can add tags to the people in your connections list. So we see Sean here, who's a friend of mine and a contact from Staffing Management Services, and I've got him tagged under partners because we refer business to one another, and under staffing because he works in the staffing industry. Now with tags, I can create separate groups of people that I want to send messages to through LinkedIn, and I can send out messages to all the people that match a specific tag, which is an easy way for me to use LinkedIn to communicate at no cost with people who are in a specific industry or have a specific relationship with our firm. You can do the exact same thing with candidates where you create tags based on the industry they're in, whether or not they're a temporary candidate or a direct hire candidate. You can think about tags any way to try to organize all of your contacts on LinkedIn. And we just talked about the building a talent community, but don't be shy about reconnecting with people. Go deep into your ATS and you're probably going to find thousands of previously placed and old candidates and everybody who was on the do not, other than those on the do not use list, that you'd love to put to work once again. Have a blitz campaign. Get all the recruiters and call everybody, email everybody. Go old school and send postcards and direct mail. Find an excuse to keep in touch with people. Start an alumni network to keep in touch with people you've placed and encourage them to come back and keep you updated on their career needs. Just make sure you're either touching base with people every few months, or ideally you have some sort of a monthly publication that's a mix of jobs and interesting fun content. That's where your company newsletter kind of comes into play. You've got that monthly communication to stay in touch and nurture the relationship in a way that is adding value and encouraging people to use your firm as a resource throughout their career. And lastly in this section, we're going to talk about the fact that you don't forget your clients. And a lot of people think about, I don't use my clients for recruiting, I'm selling to my clients. Well, referrals aren't limited to candidates. You can get them from your clients. One of our clients did something I thought was absolutely brilliant. They were having a tough time filling a very short-term need for a bunch of people. So they sent an email to all their clients and they said, hey, when you need help, we do everything to fill a job, but we've got a customer that needs help, and we know you may see people that you don't place or that you can't use. They might be in your database and you just love to help them find a home. We're trying to fill this position. Can you refer anybody to us? They filled all the positions that afternoon with referrals from their clients. One other way to do it might be to partner with your clients and say, we know you get a lot of candidates that you have to turn away because you're going to hear from many more people than you ever hire. We know it can be hard to turn people away and just say no, so we'd love to partner with you and help those candidates find jobs. Just refer them to us. So clients can be a great source of candidate referrals. All right, and our last major section, which is good because we're just about running out of time, is retention, the importance of never losing a good employee. Now, the first thing about retention is, be a best place to work. The better you are as an employer, the easier it is to retain talent, and that can mean you're best of staffing, you're best in the staffing industry, you're a best place to work in your local community, or you're a best place to work in your specific industry, or ideally, all three. Ultimately, it comes down to the firm that offers the candidates the best opportunities and the best experience is going to retain the talent. If you're not offering the best candidate experience, your competitors are. And one of the things you can do is be more proactive about skill marketing temps before they come off of assignment. Now, I know this can be contentious because a lot of times you don't know when they're coming off assignment and you're really hoping, sometimes fingers crossed, that the client will just extend the assignment and you'll be able to keep that person placed. Well, you always want to give the current employer, your client, the first shot at retaining the employee, but you also want to be aware so you're not surprised that suddenly that candidate's coming off an assignment, and even worse, they've already been placed at a new assignment by one of your competitors. If you don't show interest in the candidate proactively, your competition is going to, because the candidate doesn't want to be out of work. So you want to pick up the phone, talk to the employer, and say, hey, are you going to keep John Smith on for another week? Terrific. Do you know when the assignment's expected to end? I want to make sure we keep John happily employed. And if you're not going to keep John on, great, I'm going to start working on getting him a new job now, and then you can use something like the Talent Showcase on your website to skill market candidates before they come off assignment. And speaking of that experience, think about how do I create an awesome experience, making it easier, faster, and more fun. First thing to an awesome experience is make it easier to apply to a job. And what you're hearing the buzz around all the time now is mobile. We're seeing anywhere from high teens to low 30% of our clients' web traffic is mobile. Candidates in particular are coming to look for jobs on mobile devices. And when they're coming to your site on a phone, can they search your jobs? Well, some of the third-party sites can. Most of the iframes on an ATS cannot. And the vast majority of staffing companies don't really have a good mobile search process. Haley Marketing job board clients, congratulations, you do. You've got a very good mobile process. You also want to allow people to apply easily, so a very short application form, or using a third-party solution like Apply Now with Indeed or Apply with LinkedIn. I also want to encourage people, kill the long application forms. A long application form is death to recruiting. Okay, here we go. Yep, this is a real application form. This is what a company that I saw asked people to fill out as step one to getting a job. I couldn't even fit the whole thing on screen. So if you're a candidate and you're looking for work, or you're a passive job seeker and you're sort of looking for work, you're just interested in opportunities, would you ever fill out a form like this as step one? Nope. The abandonment rate on these kinds of forms are off the charts. So you want to take your process and break it into 2 steps. Step 1, get just the basic information. Get the contact information so that you can get their name, address. If they've got a cover letter, they can give it to you. They can send you their resume. Stop. That's all you need is step 1, because now if they don't complete anything else, you at least have their resume, you have their contact info, and you can get back in touch with them if you're interested. Step 2 is then to ask them to fill out your longer form. Now, some companies will do step 2 instantaneously. You click submit on step 1, you go right to step 2. If they abandon step 2, that's okay, at least you did step 1. Other companies will say, I want my recruiting process to be step 1 comes in, my recruiter reviews the information, and then if we like the candidate, we send them a direct link to step 2 to fill out the long form. But mobile searches and job application forms aren't the only ways to have an awesome experience. It's really about thinking the total experience and making it easier, faster, and more fun. How do I turn ho-hum, which is or ouch, which is often the 2 to 3 hour process a candidate goes through to register, and turn that into a great experience? Step 1 is to actually go through, document all the steps in your process so you know what you're asking people to do. And then ask yourself, are there any steps we can remove? How can we make it more convenient for people to apply on their own times using online forms or online testing or other resources that they could do at their convenience? The biggie, how do we improve communication? How do we give more honest feedback? If we can't place somebody, let's tell them. Let's not beat around the bush and say, yeah, we'll do what we can. If they need to improve certain skills, let's give them that response. And then how can we be more responsive to get back to people faster without overwhelming our recruiters? And that's where having some standards for response pays off. Also using automated tools, like you may have a nurture marketing campaign for candidates set up where it's a series of automated steps to stay in touch with the candidates you like so that they're not calling every other day saying, do you have a job for me yet? You can also think about, how do I completely reinvent the whole process? Everything from my waiting area to the interview facilities to, can we do remote interviewing or video-based interviewing? How do we turn applying into a great experience? And I know one of our clients, and unfortunately I don't have a picture of what they did, they totally redesigned the intake process for their industrial candidates, literally showing footsteps painted on the floor, going step to step as they were doing very high volume recruiting, and they had fun signs up all around the office, and they made it like you were going to a fair as you're actually applying for a job. They also were able to fill, I think it was 15,000 jobs in 1 week. Some final thoughts before we wrap up. And I've had a couple of questions that come in. We'll do those right at the end. Get active, measure, repeat. Recruitment marketing, getting more response from active candidates is a trial and error system. There's not one technique that's going to work for everybody on this call. If I want to have more active job seekers, I have to be more active. Online, everything we talked about today, better jobs, better posting on our website, better promotion of the jobs, better use of third-party sites, better use of social media. I want to do all these things as a habit day in and day out. And then even offline, I want our organization to have a strong brand by being active at job fairs and active in the local community and winning best place to work contests. In some cases, even outdoor advertising. Any of you in Boston have seen PSG everywhere. Those taxi toppers and buses and transit signs do a lot to brand PSG in Boston and bring in lots of candidate traffic. The stronger your local company's brand, the more candidates you're going to attract. You will be one of the employers of choice as a staffing or recruiting firm. But of course, getting more active comes with a cost, so you need to measure your results. You can look at Facebook analytics to see how much are we improving reach, are likes going up, is engagement going up, are we getting more and more people interacting with our content. You can look at Google Analytics to see how much traffic is coming from search engines, how much traffic is coming from social media, are we getting increasing results in terms of traffic coming to our website. And then you can also look at conversions. Are people coming and applying for jobs? In Google Analytics, you can create goals. When people get to certain places in your website, they've successfully completed the goal to measure what's my success rate, what's my conversion rate, so that I can then track that back to what I spent on the various measures to determine is it effective. And I also mentioned that Recruitix tool, which is a really nice way to get very deep analytics. If you're doing a lot of recruitment marketing, Recruitix is a good way to figure out what's working, what's not working, and where and when should I spend my money. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. I want to thank everybody. We ended up at 1 hour and 2 minutes. I want to thank everybody for attending today's event, but I'm sure there's going to be a ton of follow-up questions, so don't be shy. Call me, email me, message me. I'll be happy to provide follow-up, and I'm going to stay on the line and answer a few questions that came in, but if they come up after the fact, I'll be happy to talk to you. But in about 28 minutes, I'm supposed to be in the car leaving for vacation, so the answer is going to come in 1 week. I want to thank everybody for being part of today's Lunch with Haley webinar. I hope there was a lot of good take-home ideas. And as I mentioned, I'm going to stay in line. I've had a few additional questions that I'll answer, and then we'll call it quits for today's event. All right, so the first question is, does the Haley Job Board integrate with Bond's Staff Suite product? The answer is we are just about to. Bond has actually reached out to us and asked us to build an integration with them, so in a day or two, the answer is yes. Next question was about the talent showcase. Have you heard of discrimination issues with showing pictures of candidates? The company you saw, Terra Staffing Group, that was one of our joint concerns when we built this product for them. And they talked to their attorneys and came to the conclusion they did not think there was going to be an issue because they were not going to discriminate in who they showed in the talent showcase. And they also said that if you compare it to LinkedIn and Facebook and all the other social sites where employers are looking at candidate information, there are pictures everywhere. So I can't give you a legal answer to that. You'd want to talk to your attorney in your state before you would do something like that. But for our client in Seattle, Washington, they felt very comfortable. All right, and I had one more question. A couple more. Paper ads useful anymore? Do other recruiters use paper ads? This is probably going to depend on where you live. I've heard of some people who are in smaller rural communities where the community paper is still the only thing that gets read and job posts work. Then there are people in cities where it's so expensive to advertise, paper ads are not usually very useful. I know I'm in Buffalo, New York, and if you look at the weekly classified section, it has not changed in length in 5 years, and it's at the minimum number of pages they can print. That tells me something. I think most job seekers are going online first. I would try to capture them first, but the nice thing about paper is you can certainly experiment with it. Put some paper ads in, put a different phone number in that you track to find out what kind of response do I get and was it worthwhile. Another question that came in, the short form applications don't seem to collect EEOC data. How do your clients use the short form to handle the EEOC reporting each year? That's a great question. We're not collecting that. We would have to work with the company specifically if they want the short form to collect EEOC. I believe that because that's not the actual job application, that is only getting the resume, and that it's going to be sent out to do the full application. The EEOC would be in step 2, and if you're sending step 2 to everybody, you are collecting it, just not in step 1. All right, well, we are at the end of the question list, and I want to thank everybody very much for being part of today's Lunch with Haley event, and I look forward to seeing you next month. We have 2 events coming up. We have actually a very special guest presentation by John Rutledge from Assurance, and he's going to talk about the final approach to the Affordable Care Act for staffing companies. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be doing a follow-up session on content marketing and new strategies for sales and recruiting. You can register at lunchwithhaley.com, and I hope to see everybody in just a few weeks. Thank you.